Hello friends, in this video we are going to discuss about different types of semiconductors and p-n junction diode and thermistor. First of all, what are semiconductors? Semiconductors are the materials whose resistivity lies between conductors and insulators. In semiconductors, there is a gap between valence band and conduction band. When we give certain amount of energy to the valence band electrons, they will jump from valence band to the conduction band and the electrons will become free. So as these semiconductors can be used for the conduction purpose, that's why these are called semiconductors. These semiconductors are classified into two types: intrinsic semiconductors and extrinsic semiconductors. Intrinsic semiconductors are pure semiconductors. Examples are silicon and germanium. Extrinsic semiconductors are impure semiconductors, and these extrinsic semiconductors are again classified into two types based on the doping element. Those are p-type semiconductors and n-type semiconductors. First we will see about intrinsic semiconductors. Intrinsic semiconductors are called pure semiconductors. Examples are silicon, germanium. And both these semiconductors are most frequently used in the manufacturing of transistors, diodes, and other electronic components. These are also called undoped semiconductors or type 1 semiconductor. We know that the conductivity of semiconductors is small as compared to the metallic conductors. The conductivity of silicon is about 10 power 11 times lesser than the copper, which is about 10 power 13 times higher than that of fused quartz. And another distinguishing feature of the semiconductor is it will have the negative temperature coefficient of resistivity. Devices made of semiconductors are small with less weight, more reliable and inexpensive. Hence, semiconductor devices have replaced almost all vacuum tube devices. In fact, silicon has almost no free electrons at room temperature as compared with the germanium. That's why silicon is preferably used in the fabrication of semiconductor devices. If you see here, the atomic structure of silicon, whose atomic number is 14. 2 electrons in first orbit, 8 electrons in the second orbit, and 4 electrons in the outermost orbit. So the valency of the silicon is 4. And if you see the germanium also, whose atomic number is 32, it will also have same 4 electrons in the outermost orbit. Now we will take silicon as an example and we will see how the covalent bonding exists in case of silicon. So the outermost orbit of silicon has only 4 electrons. We have already seen in the before slide, and the silicon atom needs 4 more electrons to become stable. So silicon atom forms 4 covalent bonds with the 4 neighboring atoms as shown in the figure. In covalent bonding, each valence electron is shared by 2 atoms. When silicon atoms come close to each other, each valence electron of atom is shared with the neighboring atom, and each valence electron of neighboring atom is shared with this atom. Likewise, each atom will share 4 valence electrons with the 4 neighboring atoms, and 4 neighboring atoms will share each valence electron with this atom. Therefore, total 8 electrons are shared. If you see here, this silicon is having 1, 2, 3, 4 electrons, and it is sharing these 4 electrons with the 1 electron of this silicon, another electron of this silicon, another electron of this side silicon, another electron of this silicon. So this is called covalent bond. Okay. Next one. Fermi level in intrinsic semiconductor. So before going to discuss about this, first I want to tell you about Fermi level. What is this Fermi level or Fermi energy level? The concept of the Fermi energy is a very important concept to understand the electrical and thermal properties of the solids. At absolute zero temperature, this intrinsic semiconductor acts as a perfect insulator. And as I understand, the Fermi level is the highest energy state occupied by the electrons in a material at absolute zero temperature. Of course, this we can call it as a definition also. So a Fermi level is the highest energy state occupied by electrons in a material at absolute zero temperature. Now, as the temperature increases, electrons start to exist in higher energy states. And Fermi level is generally found in band gap. We already discussed, so this Fermi level generally exists in this forbidden gap. And sometimes this can be defined in another way also. Fermi level is basically the term which used to describe the top of the collection of electron energy levels at absolute zero. So now it is very simple to understand. So at absolute zero, they pack into the lowest available energy states and build up a Fermi sea of electron energy states. So the Fermi level is the surface of that sea at absolute zero, where no electrons will have enough energy to rise above the surface. Means this is the highest energy level at 0 Kelvin, and this may exist in the forbidden energy gap. So now in intrinsic or pure semiconductor, the number of holes in valence band is equal to the number of electrons in the conduction band. Hence, the probability of occupation of energy levels in conduction band and valence band are equal. And from this we can understand that the Fermi level for the intrinsic semiconductor lies in the middle of the forbidden band. Okay, so this is important one. In case remember, the conclusion of this slide is the Fermi level exists at the middle of the forbidden gap for intrinsic semiconductors, and for extrinsic semiconductors the position of Fermi level will vary. That we will see in the next slides. And now extrinsic semiconductors. So these extrinsic semiconductors are called doped semiconductors. Okay, so based on type of doping, these are again classified into two types, as we have seen in the first slide, which is the classification of semiconductors. So based on type of impurity or type of doping, these are classified into two types, n-type semiconductor and p-type semiconductor. First we will see n-type semiconductor here. So here n stands for negative. So when pentavalent impurity, pentavalent means it should have 5 valence electrons. When this type of pentavalent impurity is added to the intrinsic semiconductor, means like a silicon or germanium you can take, and you add to this pentavalent impurity, then it is said to be a n-type semiconductor. So if you consider the pentavalent impurities, the examples are phosphorus, arsenic, antimony, etc. So those are called pentavalent donor impurities. In this diagram, now let us consider one pentavalent impurity, phosphorus, and which is added to the silicon. Now we know that phosphorus is a pentavalent impurity which has 5 valence electrons, and in a last slide we have seen silicon, it is having 4 valence electrons. Now phosphorus atom has one excess valence electron than silicon. So the 4 valence electrons of each phosphorus atom form 4 covalent bonds with the 4 neighboring silicon atoms. You can see here. So this phosphorus 1, 2, 3, 4, it is sharing these 4 electrons with the 4 silicon atoms, and there is a excess electron here. There is a excess electron here. Okay, so this is called impurity. Now here we have one excess electron. Okay, so now this 5th valence electron of the phosphorus atom cannot able to form the covalent bond with the silicon atom, because the silicon atom does not have the 5th valence electron to form the covalent bond. So now this 5th valence electron of phosphorus atom does not involve in the formation of the covalent bonds. Hence it is free to move and not attached to the parent atom. So this clearly shows that each phosphorus atom donates one free electron. Therefore, all the pentavalent impurities are called donors because it is giving one excess electron. So that's why these pentavalent impurities are called donors. And the number of free electrons depends on the amount of impurity added to the silicon. For example, if you are adding more number of phosphor atoms, so it will give more free electrons. A small addition of impurity generates millions of free electrons. So we have to understand this concept. So there is a lot of difference between doping, addition, substitution. So these words will play key role in the fabrication of the semiconductors. Okay. So now we will see what is the charge on n-type semiconductor. So many people think that n-type semiconductor has larger number of free electrons because in general when n-type semiconductor means n is for negative, so that's why charge also negative. So people may feel that the charge is negative, but this assumption is wrong. Even though the n-type semiconductor has large number of free electrons, but these free electrons is given by the pentavalent atoms that are electrically neutral. Okay, so this is very tricky one. Therefore, the total electric charge of n-type semiconductor is also neutral. Okay, whatever the electrons we are getting from the pentavalent impurity, that is a neutral atom. That phosphorus is a neutral atom. Okay, so that is not giving any extra charge. Next one, p-type semiconductor. So we have seen in n-type semiconductor we have added pentavalent impurity. In case of p-type semiconductor, we have to add trivalent impurity, means there should be 3 valence electrons in the outermost orbits. Then it will called as a p-type semiconductor. So examples for trivalent impurities are boron, gallium, indium, aluminum, etc. So now in this diagram, let us consider a trivalent impurity, boron, which is added to the silicon. So now boron atom has 3 valence electrons and silicon has 4 valence electrons. So the 3 valence electrons of each boron atom form 3 covalent bonds with the 3 neighboring silicon atoms. So see here, this is one, this is second bond, this is third one, but here we have a hole here. Okay, so in the fourth covalent bond, only silicon atom contributes 1 valence electron, while the boron atom has no valence electron to contribute. So thus we can say the fourth covalent bond is incomplete because there is a shortage of electron. So this missing electron is called hole. So we have already discussed the concept of hole in our previous lecture. This shows each boron atom accepts 1 electron to fill the hole. Therefore, all the trivalent impurities are called acceptors because they need one electron. So a small addition of impurity provides millions of holes. Okay, so this is p-type semiconductor, and we will see what is the charge on p-type semiconductor. Similar to n-type semiconductor, people may think that p-type will have positive charge, and same here. In p-type semiconductor, large number of holes are there, but these holes are provided by the trivalent atoms that are electrically neutral. Therefore, the total electric charge of p-type semiconductor is also neutral. So this charge is not positive. And if you see the Fermi level in case of extrinsic semiconductors, so this will vary from p-type to n-type because the number of electrons or number of holes will vary here. Okay, so because in extrinsic semiconductor, the number of electrons in the conduction band and the number of holes in the valence band are not equal. So hence the probability of occupation of energy levels in conduction band and valence band are not equal. But in case of intrinsic semiconductors, we have already discussed there the number of electrons and holes are equal. But here the Fermi level for the extrinsic semiconductor lies close to the conduction band or valence band. It depends on the doping. Okay, so in n-type semiconductor, it is Fermi level is close to the conduction band. In p-type semiconductor, the Fermi level is close to the valence band. That we will see here in detail. So in n-type semiconductor, what happened, we will add a pentavalent impurity. Okay, so now each pentavalent impurity donates a free electron. So therefore the addition of pentavalent impurity creates large number of free electrons in the conduction band, right? So at room temperature, the number of electrons in the conduction band is greater than the number of holes in the valence band. Hence the probability of occupation of energy levels by the electrons in the conduction band is higher than the probability of occupation of energy levels by the holes in the valence band. So this probability of occupation of energy levels is represented in terms of Fermi level, as we discussed in the definition of the Fermi level. So therefore in n-type semiconductor, the Fermi level exists near to the conduction band, and same explanation in terms of holes can be explained, and it represents that the Fermi level is close to the valency band. So now p-n junction diode. As we discussed already, these semiconductors devices, they are very small in size with less weight and more reliable and inexpensive. So that's why these semiconductors replaced almost all vacuum tube devices. So now we are going to study how p-n junction diodes are formed, what are its characteristics, and how are they used, means what are the applications of the p-n junction diode, that we will see now. First, what is a p-n junction diode? This is very simple. Take a p-type semiconductor and take an n-type semiconductor, you join together. Okay, so like a layer by layer you can say, and you combine it. Such a surface junction where combination has occurred is known as p-n junction. So this combined p-type and n-type semiconductors with p-n junction formation is known as junction diode or p-n diode. And the region is called, region between p-type and n-type semiconductor is called depletion region. Okay, so the p-n junction diode is also called a semiconductor diode. The left side material, here you can see the symbol of p-n junction diode. The left side material is a p-type semiconductor having negative acceptor ions and positively charged holes. The right side materials is n-type semiconductor having positive donor ions and free electrons. Okay, and if you see the connections of p-n junction diode, there are three types of connections can be done to the battery. So those are called first one unbiased circuit, second one forward biased circuit, and third one reverse bias circuit. So mostly this forward bias and reverse bias are very important, and but anyway I want to tell you about unbiased circuit also. So first of all we will see how we are connecting the circuit. You take a p-type you take a n-type semiconductor, and you take a p-type semiconductor and n-type semiconductor, and you join together. Okay, they will form a depletion layer, and you connect the n-type to the negative charge and connect positive terminal to the p-type. Okay, so this is called one type of connection, so that is a forward bias connection. By using this we can understand even unbiased circuit also. When the junction is not connected to any voltage source, means when there is no battery, it is said to be unbiased, and due to the barrier potential across the junction, there will not be any flow of charge carriers, and hence there is no current flow through the junction. So this type of connection is called unbiased circuit. So this is very simple. We should not connect the junction to the battery. So okay, that is called unbiased circuit. Now we will see next one, forward biased circuit. So as you can see in the figure, when positive terminal of the battery connected to p-type and the negative terminal of the diode to the n-type, the junction is said to be forward biased. Okay, since the potential barrier height is very small, when the applied voltage exceeds that value, the junction resistance becomes almost zero and low resistance path is established, and hence even for small increase in applied voltage we observe large increase in circuit current. When the applied voltage is above the barrier potential, the forward current is found to increase linearly with the applied voltage. Okay, and those characteristics we will see in the next sections. Just I want to tell you how we can connect it in forward bias and reverse bias. And if you see reverse bias here, uh, you take n-type semiconductor and connect it to the positive terminal, and you take a p-type semiconductor and connect it to the negative terminal. Okay, so this type of connection is called reverse bias. Okay, what will happen when you connect these battery? So as an n-type semiconductor will have majority electrons, thus will come towards the battery positive side, and the positive charges in p-type semiconductor will come towards the battery negative side. So in this way the depletion layer will increases, there will not be a flow of current through the barrier. But in case of forward bias, when you connect the n-type to the negative terminal of the battery, this negative repels, so that the negative charge carriers from n-type move towards the junction. Similarly, when you connected this positive terminal of the battery to the p-type semiconductor, as they are having same charge, the holes will move towards the junction. So slowly with increasing the voltage, the depletion layer will decreases, and at a particular voltage it will break the junction. So that can be understood here from this diagram. So x-axis we have taken applied voltage and y-axis current. This means we are increasing the voltage from the battery source and we are measuring the current with the help of a ammeter. Okay, so now we will see, when you apply small amount of voltage in forward bias, initially you cannot see any current because it needs certain amount of voltage to break the junction. So when it reaches that voltage, the junction will break and there is a sudden increase in the current. Okay, so that is called breakdown voltage. And similarly, when reverse biased, the slight reverse current flows in the circuit. So you may have a doubt in reverse bias what is happening. In reverse bias, these negative are all coming this side and this positive are coming this side. Then how come the current can be seen in the ammeter? You can connect ammeter somewhere here. So how you can see current here? So this logic is very simple. Here this is due to the minority charge carriers. Okay, so if you see in n-type there are still some positive charge carriers, in p-type still there are negative type of charge carriers. For those charge carriers it is forward bias, and these are very less in number. Okay, so that's why you are able to see very small current in reverse bias. And if you see in magnitude wise also, in forward bias the current is in milliampere range, whereas in reverse bias it is in microampere range, means the current is very small, because that is due to the minority charge carriers. That also you can see after the application of high voltage, that is a large bias voltage. When the applied reverse voltage is high enough to break the covalent bonds of the crystal, the current rises suddenly in the reverse direction. So the breakdown reverse bias is called breakdown voltage or GNR voltage. So this is that voltage. Okay, and for germanium diode the reverse resistance is around 1 mega ohms, and the DC resistance in case of forward bias is 100 ohms. That is very less in case of forward bias for germanium diode. And here I want to tell one more point also, how the temperature affect the flow of current. So with increase in temperature, what will happen? The circuit current has to increase, because it is getting more and more energy, so that more valence electrons can jump to the conduction band. For both germanium and silicon, the increase can be about 7%. So this means that for rise of 10 degrees, the current nearly doubles. Okay, so this is about and another interesting part, applications where we can use this p-n junction diode. Okay, so p-n junction diode is having several wonderful applications. So almost many electrical equipments consist of this diode, and if you see here few applications, it can be used as a half wave rectifier. And if you see what is half wave rectifier, you can see in the diagram here. So in the upper figure, the red one is input, what we are giving here, this is input signal, so which is red in color. And the output you can see this is giving only half wave. Okay, so there is a break between the wave, so that can be come with the help of this diode. So these diodes are used in rectifiers, so especially in half wave rectifier. And here we are using only one diode. In case of full wave bridge rectifier, we are using 4 diodes. Okay, so what is the use of this one? Here also the input is same. So here you can see this is the input what we can give, but the output will appear like this. There will not be any negative side. So you will get the full wave, but full wave only in one side, positive side. And this also used in light emitting diodes, LEDs. So we know LEDs having tremendous applications, like lights, LED lights and LED TV panels. And this junction diodes also used in solar cells. Solar cells also having the same application. Okay, so these are the few applications of the semiconductors.